Sam Smyers here. Today I want to talk about how to make a lo-fi beat using just 4 samples. This is going to be a great way to make lo-fi if you are a beginner, if you are just starting out producing, or if you are just learning how to use Ableton. If you enjoy this video, then please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to my channel because that will help you stay updated with future tutorial videos that I put out. It will also help other musicians, artists, and music producers find videos like this a lot easier. So let's go ahead and see how we make this beat. I'm going to go ahead and play the beat. I'm going to play about a minute of it, so if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, then you can skip through this part. So that was a beat. It's pretty simple. Now for lo-fi music, a lot of people like to listen to lo-fi when they're studying, when they want to chill out. So it's important to keep it relatively simple and not have too much stuff going on. So as you can see, I have 4 different tracks. What I have is I have a drum loop, I have a piano track, I have the bass, and then I have this saxophone track. So let's go ahead and talk about this drum loop. When you are putting the drums together for a lo-fi beat, try to find something between 70 BPM to about 100 BPM. This loop is 90 BPM, so that is going to be the BPM of this track. And also, when you're finding drum loops, if you want to use like a lo-fi drum loop, you could also search for jazz drum loop. So a jazz drum loop is going to be a similar style to this lo-fi hip-hop vibe that you're going to get if you add some vintage modeling on it or some saturation. This drum loop by itself has some pretty good effects already on it. It has a bit of a vinyl noise to it, and it's already been filtered out really nicely. So let me go ahead and solo that and play it by itself. So you can hear that vinyl hiss, and it has some of the highs filtered out. So what I did is I just added a low cut and then a high cut very mildly, not anything crazy. And then I have a auto filter that I automate on and off during this section here. So that gives a little bit of an effect, like the drums all of a sudden drop out and go really distant during that section whenever I introduced the saxophone. Then I have a bit of compression, and I have the utility plugin just taking off some of the gain from that drum loop. So next I have the piano track, and whenever you're looking for compositions to use for lo-fi, or you're coming up with chords, if you know how to make chords, then you can look for adding chords that have sevenths in them. So most chords have the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the scale, but you can add the 7th in to give it more of that lo-fi jazzy vibe. So let me go ahead and solo this piano. Now on the piano, I have the Isotope Vinyl plugin. This is a free plugin, so you can go ahead and grab this and use this for a lot of your lo-fi tracks, or to add a lo-fi vibe to any of your other tracks. It's really cool because you can add this warp depth, you can add scratch, dust, mechanical noise, you can also add the year. So let me just play around with this so you can hear some of the things that it does. So as you heard, when I turned up the scratch, it got pretty crazy. You could have it more subtle. I'm not using any scratch or dust. I have a little bit of warp depth, and I have the year set at 1980. Let's go ahead and listen to the piano with and without this vinyl. Off. On. So it just adds a little bit of a nice vibe to that piano track. Next we have the bass, and for the bass I'm using this one bass note sample, and what I did is I found this one bass note and then I put it into Ableton's sampler. So let me go ahead and just play. As you can see, I have this device. It says C minor and I have the bass set at F sharp. What this is a MIDI device that allows you to select the key of the song that you're in, and then when you play a MIDI note, it will automatically put that MIDI note within the key that you are playing. So if you don't know music theory very well, you could put this device onto your MIDI track, set the key, and then play the notes on your keyboard, and the notes that you are playing will always be in key. It's a really cool tool. So it's going to be under MIDI effects, and it will be under the scale. So I can find it, I put C minor because it's a minor scale, and then I just set the bass, which is going to be the root note of the scale. So the root note of the scale for this song is F sharp. So let's go ahead and take a look at the notes that I played. These are the notes. Let's take a look at some of the effects that I have on the bass. So for the bass, I have some compression. Then I have this JJP, Jack Joseph Puig bass plugin. So that is with and without the plugin. Then I have a sidechain plugin, so I'm sidechaining the bass to the kick. Because I'm using a drum loop, what I can do for a sidechain is Ableton's compressor has this sidechain option that allows you to select the frequency that you want to trigger the sidechain. So basically, I have a high cut filter put on, so I'm cutting off all of the high frequencies from the drum loop, and I'm only allowing the low frequencies come through. So that means that I'm only allowing that kick drum to trigger the sidechain. So this headphone button, I can audition and listen to what I am allowing through into the sidechain. So as you can see, the kick drum is triggering the sidechain, as opposed to if I turn this off, then all the other drum hits will be triggering the sidechain. So that's it for the bass. Let's go ahead and listen to this saxophone sample. So I actually added a lot of effects to this saxophone sample. Let me go ahead and play the sample without any of the effects. Let me go ahead and add these effects one by one so we can see what they're doing to the sound. Basically, I am rolling off the low end and the high end, so I'm allowing the mid to high range frequencies through. And then what I'm doing is I'm adding some distortion, so I'm using this Mariquin distortion, and I have it mixed in with the original signal. Then I have the little altar boy, and that is what is creating most of the effect here. So I have the pitch turned up all the way to 12, and then the formant turned down to -12. And this has a mix of 100% wet. Then I add some reverb. I'm using the Valhalla vintage verb. I have about 35% of the mix, a concert hall, and the decay is about 1.29 seconds. Next, I add another low cut because there is now some low end introduced from the little altar boy in the Valhalla vintage verb. I might actually add a little bit more as I listen to this. So I added a low cut and another high cut. So I'm just taking off any low and high end stuff that was introduced from the distortion from the little alto boy and from the reverb again. So I did that at the beginning and then again at the end. So you can also take the drum loop and chop it up. That is another way to create interesting drum patterns. I did that here. I chopped up a little fill. What I did is I took the snare and the kick. So here's the kick, here is the snare, and I used this to chop up and make a fill. So there's a little fill. So once I have all of these tracks together, then I added some plugins for the master. You can add some of the Ableton stock plugins. I used some of iZotope's plugins because iZotope has these vintage line of plugins. So what I used is a vintage compressor. Then I followed up that vintage compressor with the vintage tape. I just chose the preset that was increased warmth. And then I followed up the vintage tape with the vintage limiter, and I have the tube setting selected, and I have True Peak activated. Then to check my loudness, I have the U-Lean loudness meter to make sure that I am not too loud and not too soft. there you have it, guys. That is how you make a lo-fi beat with just 4 samples. This is an easy way to get started with lo-fi. I hope that you found this video enjoyable, and if you did, please go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because that will help you stay updated with future tutorial videos that I do and help others find these videos as well. So thank you very much, guys. I will see you next time.